And joining us now on the news to shed more light on this is convener, Yes We Feed Revolutionary Movement, Thomas Wilson Ikubese. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, now before we castigate the minister's statement, about this, do you think the suspension of the anti-open grazing law will help reduce the incessant killings in these troubled states?
Well, one thing that is important is that the anti-open grazing law didn't just sweep up, it didn't just come up. Persons in the state felt that their rights were being bastardized, they felt that their life was at risk, and they cried to the state houses of assembly that they belonged to. And then there was a bill that passed through different processes before it became eventually law, and the state governors had to sign to make it become a law. So you do not just wake up as a minister and say that you are repealing the law that was duly passed by the State House of Assembly, signed by the governor of that state. It is an encroachment on the rule of law. It is not to be heard of. It's supposed to be highly discouraged, and I am totally against such a thing. No minister has the power to repeal a law that has been properly passed by the State House of Assembly, duly signed by the governor of that state. Now, I've always supported that the way to go is to ranch our cattle. If they decide to call it colony, well, whatever that means, but ranching is the way to go, and we already have states that are willing to, donate land for ranching. I think that's the way to go, but asking that the states that have passed the law should suspend it is against the spirit and the norm of democracy, and it should be discouraged. As a matter of fact, the Honorable Minister should be made to apologize to the states that have passed this law, which he is asking to repeat. It doesn't have such powers, and it should not be heard of in a democracy.
All right, and one of those states is Ekiti, where the governor of Fayoshe is saying that the federal government cannot abrogate the anti-grazing law, that the constitution is clear on what that holds for the federal and state levels. Are we expecting, considering that these ministers are aware of what the constitution says, are we expecting court orders here and there between ministers and state governors?
You see, the bottom line is, if you look at the conflict that we've been having between the herders and the farmers, you realize that it does appear that there is some silent conspiracy. As a matter of fact, the crisis shouldn't have taken this long. The issue is about the open grazing, the cattle, they go and the feed on the crops, and people get killed. And the solution is to ban the open grazing and make provision for people to take their cows to where they could feed within a confined environment. The government should be seen to be supporting this, not discouraging it, not telling people who have passed the law in their state to repeal it. So the state of Ekiti is also an instance, and I believe that if we truly want peace, if this administration truly wants peace in this country, they should do everything to see that we ranch our cattle. That is the way
Thomas, I'm
to
not
go.
sure if you understood my question. I'm asking how optimistic you are that this matter will maybe settled in a peaceful manner and not with court matters between defense minister and state governors who have gone ahead with the anti-grazing law.
Yes, it could be settled. Now, if you realize the way these laws were passed, it didn't just wake up, there was open hearing, and then, it went through the various process, of passing the law at the state houses of assembly. So certainly it can be settled. But the Honorable Minister for Defense should not inflame the situation by asking that state to repeal the law. The way to attain peace is not by repealing the law. If there's anything, it is actually by enforcing the law and at the same time making provision for ranches. I have always believed that it's not actually ideal for you to say ban open grazing and you have not provided alternative for people. And when we listened to the Benue state government, they did mention that they gave a period of time for the herders to actually make provision for where they will ship their cattle to. So while we are saying that there should be no open grazing, we should also be fair enough to provide land for those people to graze their cattle. There is the argument that it's a private business, so those who are in the business should make provision for where their cattle will feed in terms of the ranching. Well, that is a story for another day, because as well as we have the support of the government for farmers who are into crop production, we also need to have support for farmers who are into animal husbandry. Cattle rearing is a form of agriculture, and the government also should support them the way it supports the other people who are in other sectors of agriculture.
Now, you've said that the federal government should support all those who want to go into cattle ranching. Now, the House of Representatives, as you know, directed the federal government to come up with a supplementary budget to support this. Do you think the Nigerian economy can actually accommodate this?
Well, getting a supplementary budget, if it passes through the House, the National Assembly, and it is taken by members of the House, well, the bottom line for me is that we should not see herders as enemies of the people. They are not enemies. They are doing their own business, but that business that they are doing should not impinge on the right of other people. Now, the same way that we have support of the federal government for those who have agronomy, those who have crops in their farms, and we have fertilizers for them, the same way the government can also support those who are into animal husbandry by way of cattle rearing. That also should be supported by government. But the bottom line is, having to do open grazing in 21st century is strange. It should not be accommodated in any way. But while we are doing effort to take that out of the system, we should also consider that when you are doing that, those who are also in the farmers should also be given some form of support from the federal government. That's where the issue of the ranching coming, the support from the state government. Fortunately, we've had about 11 state governments that are willing to donate land for ranching. So that's beautiful enough. So our emphasis right now as a nation, as a government, should be about getting those ranches to be established in states that have volunteered to have land. Some states say they don't have land. There's nothing you can do about that, because the Land Use Act has a power confined to the state government and not the federal government. So states that have volunteered to donate land for it, the government should support them to have those ranches developed in those states. And those states that say, no, we can't do much about it. But the truth of the matter is,
thank you so much for your thoughts on this. Thomas Wilson Ikubese is the convener, yes, with Feet Revolutionary Movement. Thank you so much for your thoughts.